So I want to welcome everybody to the latest East Kingdom Chivalry AMA. We are going to be focusing on the philosophies of the members of the panel, the members of the chivalry who are here tonight. Basically, it's going to be, what do we think it takes to be a member of this order, what we feel the ideals are, what we feel it means to be a member of this order, whether it be fighting, artistic, personality, composure, etc. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to go around with the panel and have everyone introduce themselves. Everyone's going to give just a quick little couple minute expose of themselves and what their feelings are and their basic personal philosophies are. And then once we get around, we'll open it up to questions. If you have a question, feel free to just drop it in the chat. Otherwise, just start waving like a maniac and I'll see it. And then if you want it directed to somebody, just put their name in there who you want it directed towards. If it's not directed towards anyone in particular, we'll just open it up to the group. So unless anyone has any questions, we'll go ahead and get started. So what I'd like to do is I guess I'll go around and have the members of the panel introduce themselves. I guess we'll start with Sir Cassius, since he's up in the top corner of my screen here. So if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and give just a quick little rundown of your basic philosophies of what it means to be, or what it means to become a member of the Order of the Chivalry. Of course, you're muted, so you may want to undo that, sir.
I'm Zoom savvy.
There he is.
And in terms of philosophies of what it means to be a knight, as someone who was squired to a dear friend and foreign knight, I didn't have a ton of guidance, so a lot of it was me sort of drawing from the ether and just trying to take the elements of what I was exposed to and interpret that as much as possible. But for me, one of the most important things in my own philosophy about how to focus on the things that are going to make me a better functional human in my day-to-day life beyond just the society. So pushing myself to excel and bringing awareness about what's happening around me and trying to conduct myself in an order that is knightly. That's my shorthand answer. Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to, we'll go right across the top here. We'll go on to Valgar.
Hi, I'm Valgard. I've lived in the East for about 20 years. Before that, I lived in the West for about 20 years with a brief sojourn in Caid. And my philosophy of what it means to be a knight is centered on the crown and combat and my lady. And I believe that my joy from being a knight is in fighting, and fighting is the most important aspect of chivalry. I believe that I fight for myself, I fight for my lady, and I fight for my crown. And those are the three central competing, and often there is a tension between all three of them. Or between two of them, in why I fight and what I'm here for and what I do. But the crown, my lady, and myself, and the joy of fighting, that's what I think being a member of the chivalry is. You serve your lady, you serve your crown, and you gotta love what you do.
Let's see. Thank you. We will move over to Ionis.
Hey everybody, I'm Ionis. Never lived anywhere but the East. In about 3 days, it will be 11 years since the man, Sir Colin McKinnon, first put a sword in my hand next week. He remembers that. I see him giggling and turning rosy in his cheeks. My philosophy on chivalry is a little very different than Sir Valgard's, and more in line with what Cassius was saying. I heard a saying. I was looking through Facebook today, and I heard a saying that Duke Ronvalder says, and he says, "What I lack in humility, I make up for with prowess." That can start where I am, but what it really means for me is, who am I, where am I going, and what do I stand for? It's a lot more of a punk rock philosophy than it really is a chivalry. I love to fight. If anybody who grew up like I did, a North Jersey kid or something like that, we grew up with a lot of music, a lot of backyard shows, and mosh pit therapy was a thing for me growing up. It was everything I wanted. It was release. It was spiritual. You went and sat with your friends afterwards and you bullshitted and you felt part of, you felt like you belonged. And that's what being part of a semi-exclusive club in the chivalry feels like to me at times, where, you know, we brave few, we foolish men and women of the chivalry who devote our lives and meanings to stand for something. And it's very personal, and I'm sure I'll get into it more later, but I have some very strict ideals that I have, and they're all contingent upon how I live my life here where I'm sitting is who I want to be there. And the ability to project that and live it, you know, with our wonderful names and our wonderful awards and everything that we do. People care here. You know, you walk down the street, telling somebody you're a knight, see how much they give a shit. They don't. But here we care. And it's about respect and love for each other and the ability to help others. And that's what I got to start with. Thank you, Ron.
All right, thank you. We will move on to Cullen. And you're okay, good.
Hi, I'm Cullen. Lived most of my life in the East, spent a little tour out in the West, specifically in Huerta, Alaska. My philosophy on chivalry is pretty simple. It's, you know, a path striving to be a better person. Honor your king, honor your lady, have fun, and above all, help people along their path, or, you know, help people achieve whatever goals that they want to achieve, whether it be a peerage or it be anything else in the society. That's what I got.
All right. And let's see. I know Sir Muhammad was on the list, but he had a last-minute cancellation. So I had to call Sir Ryu, and I know he was just dying to get in here. So Sir Ryu's going to be Sir Mo for tonight.
We want the accent too.
Yep.
I don't have as cool of an accent as Mo, nor am I nearly a level of spearman that he is.
Are you whispering to me?
I'm sorry?
Are you whispering? Is anyone
No,
else?
I'm not whispering. Am I not loud? I'm usually
I never heard
loud.
Ryo be quiet before.
I know, right? It was almost nice.
I'm
not sure it's
good.
right.
Can you hear me?
Pretty quiet.
Pretty quiet. Okay. So I'll talk a little bit closer and we'll see if that works out for me. I take myself to be something of a modern samurai. Samurai comes from the Japanese word sabaru, which means to serve. So my philosophy as a knight is one of service. I believe that every action that I take should always be to the betterment of something greater than myself, whatever that is. When I swear my fealty, my oath is such that should my king and queen fall short of their goals, I will lift them higher, because that is my job. I believe that we don't need necessarily a plan so long as we have a goal and we can move forward with it together. Yeah, that's pretty much the set that I try to live by. I think the most important thing are the virtues that we hold and how we represent them, and then I apply prowess to them, because I think prowess without virtues is tyranny. That's it. That's all I got for you.
All right, thank you. And lastly is myself for the panel tonight. I'm Wilhelm. I came up in the SCA in an extremely military-based household where prowess was the focus above all. It was. If you want to be a knight, you better be the best damn fighter on that field at the time. However, over the years, my personal philosophy changed a lot, whereas obviously fighting is still a huge part of it. I truly believe that the most important thing a member of the order can do is service to the kingdom, whether it be the royals or a brand new person. We are here to teach. We are here to help. If anyone needs help, we were on a throne. I took my crown off and helped somebody set up their tent because there was no one else around to do it. We are here to help and to serve, not just the person wearing the coronets at the time, but everyone in this kingdom who needs help. And that is one of the things that really brings me the most satisfaction, is the ability to help people whenever I can and whenever they have to. And a lot of my brothers here today said that service to the king and queen, the royals, the consuls, whoever's sitting on the throne at the time is important. However, for me personally, I look at it as I am serving that crown regardless of who's wearing it. That's something I've seen over many years, is even members of this order will be like, oh, the king needs help. Oh, he's an a-hole. I'm not helping him. So that's irrelevant. You serve that crown. You serve that shiny metal thing sitting on his head. I don't care who's wearing it. For me personally, my goal is to make this kingdom the best that it possibly can be. And whatever I got to do to achieve that, whether it be to help the person wearing the crown, to help the person that just showed up today for their first event, is my entire goal, is to make this kingdom better. And if it means also killing a few people on the field, I'll do that too. What do you want? So there's also a couple other members of the order here tonight who weren't on the official panel, but if you have something direct that you'd like to direct to them as well, just speak it out. So I guess what we'll do is I did get a couple of questions sent in that I will start off with, just to make them easy. Ignore my old man glasses. I don't want to hear it. So let's see. Lord Thorin Olson sent in a question. He asked, looking at a potential chivalry candidate, especially someone who lives in an extreme corner of the kingdom, whether it be Nova Scotia or way out of Pennsylvania or anywhere. Somebody that either can't get around a lot or a lot of the members can't get up to see them. How do we adjust for that, whether it be when it comes to their fighting, their service? Do we rely more heavily on the local opinions of the local fighters and knights or members of the chivalry, or do we still demand, for lack of a better term, for ourselves that we have to see this person? I know for me personally, only because I'm reading the question, I'll say it real quick, but it's not fair for me to make an opinion unless I can make an informed and educated opinion. So I really have to have been able to have seen that person at least within the last year to get a gauge of where they are, what they're doing. When it comes to all the other stuff, arts and science and service, you can get word of mouth of that. But for fighting, I mean, there's no other way to judge it other than fighting the person. I mean, that's just me personally. But if that person's the biggest help, the greatest artist and all that stuff, cool. I just got to know how they fight. So who else wants to take that one? Anyone else have okay, Ernest, what do you got?
All right. Well, speaking from the same former position as you, it's, having knighted somebody from the Great White North over Penzic a few years ago, I had only fought Baptiste a few times in my entire 5 or 6 years. And most of my experience with him at the time was at Burka, believe it or not, or GNE. Usually there's some stateside event that somebody gets to as a fighter. I mean, in my experience, this is just me. Usually they get to something. If not, there's a group of 4 knights that I have north of here that I completely trust their judgment because they've never let me wrong before. and usually if 3 or 4 of those guys agree on it and that's their direct area and their direct experience, I can trust that judgment and my conscience is clear with that.
Colin?
Valgard was before me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see the hand. Okay, never mind. Sure,
Yeah,
go
he's
ahead,
got
buddy.
that little hand up in the
All
corner.
right.
Oh yeah, look
I
at
just
that.
saw the little blue hand or Cullen's big giant meat hook. So
All right. Hey, everybody. So I've had to deal with this. I've knighted 2 people whom I never fought before. I'd never fought them. One was in Lockrock, and one was in Owertha. And in fact, I wasn't even present for the knighting in Owertha. My queen went up there. They say never let your queen travel with the great sword of state. I will not say that, but I sent her up to Owertha with the great sword of state, and suddenly there were 5 new peers. And there's a reason for that, because I said, look, I don't know these people and you don't know these people, but we have peers up there, and whatever the peers up there say, I'm good with. And that was my feeling, right? Every member of this council is a member of the chivalry, and they are my peer, and our opinions are all basically equal. And if the council in Owertha said, we want to knight this person, knight them. Same with the council in Lockrock. And that's the first answer that I have. The other answer is, we're back to philosophy. Someone once said, well, what's a knight? And this is a very SCA-centric, early SCA-centric philosophy. I learned from a first decade SCA knight. He says, well, if you can drop a fighter into a place where there's not a branch and they have a war unit in 2 years, knight them. Right? And that's kind of the other thing. Are they building up the art where they are? Then they're probably worthy of consideration. Those are my 2 answers.
all right. Cullen. Oh,
I think-
and then I'll get rid of you.
I think part of our responsibility is to try and get to these far reaches of the kingdom. And while I know that's not always possible, I think that's part of our job is to try and get out there. And when we can't, we have to rely on the chivalry that's out there to give us an informed opinion. I don't like, when a poll comes up, I'd rather abstain on someone I don't know. But I'm a guy who likes to travel, and I like to fight, and traveling and fighting, 2 things that really are integral to the order.
All right. Ryu.
All right, so I think that a lot of the answers that we have right now are like what we as chivalry can do generally to try and help that person out, and like where we get our opinions and where we draw them from. I'm going to talk a little bit more about billing and branding. So if you're in a particularly remote location, the best thing you can really do for yourself is kind of network, right? Especially in an information and media age. Find people that are local to an area that you might be traveling. If you're traveling to the southern region, you can contact myself or Cullen or Ionis and tell us, hey, I'm going to be here for these practices in these dates. And we will set you up with dance partners. If you're like, hey, I want to fight as many knights as I can in this area, there's nothing wrong with announcing that you're going to be there, and then we'll set you up with dance partners. And that will give us an idea for where you're at. That will give you an opportunity to receive critique and instruction. And that will also have us remember that there was someone who had the ambition to come and reach out to us. So I think that, there's definitely some things that we travel a lot. When there's not a pandemic, I pride myself on traveling from Delaware to Canada every season. But also, let us know where you're going to be. We are a resource as an order for you to utilize. As even if you don't have a knight yourself, even if you're not a squire, the entire order is here to help you. Reach out to any one of us in any location, and we'll help you along your way. We've been up that mountain.
All right, Zippy.
So my philosophy tends to be slightly different on some of the regards about how it's prowess only, because we've got plenty of fighters that we just don't talk about that are really good because people aren't drawn to them as leaders or have those sort of skills. So when we talk about things like the fictional bar, like this, oh, you got to be 50% of the nights, 50% of the time. And you have somebody that can't even meet up with, 25% of the nights. We're talking about like, where's the bar for them? And then how do we determine that bar? So far, that's all that people have discussed. But it's more than that. Like the other aspects are easily discernible through other people and can be discussed with, I hate this catchphrase, but it's super valid, is word fame. So we could talk about that word fame that they have from other people. If members of the populace are asking why this person isn't a knight, and then the upper level fighters start discussing like, hey, I really do think he's there, then that puts a lot more merit than you think to that conversation. If all they have is, yeah, he's good. Yeah, totally, we can get other fighters together. Well, that's totally easy to get into that bro club. But that's not the knights I want to build. I don't give a shit about that. I want to build leaders and members of the community who can help lead to a better place. The stories we have about knights aren't just about knights who are badass fighters. And no, they were pinnacles of different virtues. And those virtues aren't all determined on the field. And somebody that's out in the layer, like disparate areas, sure, we start talking about that fictional bar, but it's easy to determine the other virtues. And if they have the other virtues in abundance, then they're at the bar. Well, I'm not going to care because they're going to be a credit to the order and a credit to the community, which is much, much more important than just making a good fighter a knight.
All right, thank you. Let's see. We got Crow. What's going on, buddy?
I don't know what.
So one of the things that I want to touch on that I haven't heard anyone touch on is this is directed to the individuals from further reaches of the kingdom, is when you do get a chance to go to a bigger event, when you do get a chance to travel, and it may only be, once or twice a year, make the most of it. Be the first on the field. Obviously, travel time, we know, but be the first on the field. Stay for pickups, and when you're doing that, seek out the members of the Orders of Chivalry. Seek us out. If we're on the field, then we want to fight. So come up to us and say, "Hey, you got a minute? You want to fight?" Make that short time or those few opportunities mean the most. Because one of the things, and Iona's talked about it, is that we trust our brothers' opinions. If there's someone from the Great North who can't make it, south of the border too often, but guys up there like Sir Mohammed, like Baptiste, are raving about this individual, then that's going to carry a lot of weight with those of us who haven't had a chance to see them. So that's my advice for people who may not get to a lot of the big events often, is on those few opportunities, make the most of them.
All right.
May I reiterate one other part, Sir Wilhelm?
Yeah, man.
Something that I forgot to mention before is that, what two of my brothers were just saying is that there's a slightly unpopular opinion that, prowess does make the knight. I make no qualms about that. Duke Brennan is fond of saying, that gets you the ticket to the party or the ticket to the dance. However, you know, I know many knights that are not prowess knights. A lot of knights I know they have jobs in our society as peers. You know, some of us become amazing. You know, this is not about, it's not pejorative, but like some of us become leaders of groups. Some of us become warlords. Some of us become kings. Some of us, you know, guide the unbelt. Some, you know, each of us has something different to bring to the table. And sometimes knights get made that are not exactly the highest bar of prowess. You know, there's always the levels that Zippy was talking about, but you know, knights are made for more than just prowess. They're made for who they are and what they contribute to us as a society. They're made for what they are, you know, like Crow, you know, I slapped his ass, you know, and that man went from being, no offense, one of the biggest assholes I knew, to being a pillar and the knight marshal of his community, you know, within a year and a half, you know, from 6 years ago, him and I arguing on the unbelt field together because we had a pissing match, to me loving this man, his family, and everything he stands for. He proved himself to the whole order that he is a person of notice, a person of knowledge, and a leader amongst men and women and fighters. And, you know, so sometimes your prowess doesn't get you the job. Sometimes it's what you do, what you stand for, and what you bring to the big table that we all sit at. That's what sorry about the second double dipping. I apologize.
No problem. All right. Let's see. I don't see any other hands. Does anyone have any questions that they'd like to tack onto that, or shall we? Or any other questions they'd like to ask at the moment?
Hi, it's Timbrian. Can
Hi
you hear
there.
me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. I'd love to just dig a little bit deeper in that. And to that point, I trust this is, you know, a safe space where we can have some courageous conversations.
Absolutely.
I have, just in my experience, a little, I don't know, like I see when people get knighted, and of course I'm a squire. I'm on, you know, the path. It has been incredible. I've been so supported by so many very, very generous fighters. And I've had a resoundingly successful, you know, I feel super supported. And I see in the knighting process where there are, you know, the different people who come and speak, and for the honor of the knights who are being knighted. But sometimes I've had some kind of questionable experiences through the years. I've been fighting a long time, on the field at Penzic, and, you know, harassment, and from honestly more knights than not, and from the East and West Coast. And I just kind of wondered, like, you know, I know prowess is super important, and I know we're also checking on, you know, do their peers believe in them as well? But I just wondered if there was some kind of, you know, more kind of, I don't know how to phrase it, kind of character quality inquiries before they get to the stage. You know what I mean?
I do. And actually, it's funny you mentioned it, because I recently had a conversation with somebody pretty much on the same subject. And just to make sure I understand properly, you're just asking if we take personality into consideration, whether in or out of the SCA. Is that pretty much what you're looking at?
Yes, you know, the defense, you know, the chivalric value, the defense of the weak and the underrepresented. Like, is that a conversation?
Well,
I know it varies between person to person, but it's just nice to talk about.
Nope, that's fine. And actually, I'd like to take this first, because this is actually something that's very personal to me. And if I offend anybody, I'm going to apologize now. But my whole philosophy is, if you're an asshole in real life, you're an asshole in the SCA. So I will never, ever hesitate to call somebody out for bad behavior, whether it's on the field, off the field, in the parking lot, after the event. That's something I take extremely personal, and it really pisses me off when I see it. So, and I told the guys, you know, the people in my household, I tell fighters in my barony, I tell my squires and man-at-arms, if any knight comes up and gives you an unjustified rash of shit, you absolutely let me know. And I say that to any person that's in this panel or in this forum right now, because I actually ran across this 2 Pescas ago going through the A&S field. We were walking through the A&S, and there's some Laurel screaming at some poor new person, and I took her aside and I told her in front of everybody, "So you out of your goddamn mind? So you don't talk to somebody like that. I don't care who you are." So it's not just a trait that I expect, let alone demand out of the chivalry. I expect it out of all peers. That you just don't act like that. There's no reason to it. There's no reason to act superior to somebody just because you have a higher skill level in something. It's ridiculous. So for me, that translates whether on the field, off the field, going through the merchant area, going through A&S. There's no place for that. And because everyone's here to have fun. And me making fun of somebody because they're wearing a homemade tunic they made last week to come to an event just will set me off in a heartbeat if I see somebody do that. So, and I'll tell everybody here, someone gives you crap on the field at an event, you come find me if I'm there. I have no reservations about telling somebody they're being an asshole. So I will stop there. And if anyone else wants to jump on, I see hands all over the place.
Lots of hands.
I'll go right down in order. We'll start with Valgar.
Okay. So to directly answer your question, yes, it is a conversation that comes up. Yes, people's actions, their treatment of others, their what they have done in the world outside the SCA, it comes up. Questions of harassment have come up. And there is often there's often a problem when dealing with issues like that. I'm gonna be right up front about it. And there's a couple of different problems that exist. Problem one is that everybody has friends who love them and believe in them and trust them and will stand up for them. And a lot of people have people who don't particularly like them. And often, and quite too often, when people are complained about in the discussion, I'm talking strictly about the discussion of candidates, their friends stand up and say, "Hey, no, this is a great person and this is all wrong." And to be perfectly honest, we are not a body that's equipped to investigate any of that stuff. So we have to rely on word of mouth and sometimes on rumor, right? And it is a problem that has always vexed us and will continue to. Now, on a purely personal note, I've been a big asshole myself in the past, and I'm willing to admit that. And part of my personal philosophy is that you got to stand up and admit when you were an asshole and what you did wrong, right? And that's part of being a knight. But there are often candidates that I have stood up and said, no, I'm not gonna support this candidate because there's something about their personality that I just do not want representing me as a knight, right? But the other side of that is that when it comes down to the coin, it comes down to it, the only person who makes a decision is the crown, right? That's it. And I've often said, in Knights Council when we're discussing somebody, hey, Your Majesty, looks like you've made up your mind, so the discussion's over, because I really believe that. It's the Crown's decision. And I like to joke that the Crown never makes mistakes, they just set precedent. But sometimes the Crown does make a mistake in this regard, right? And that is an issue that we all have to deal with. It's kind of, I hope I made sense. I hope I wasn't just talking out of my butt there.
Yeah. easy to ramble. I know the feeling. Let's see here. Let's go to Zippy.
This has definitely been a real problem, like not to discount it. And there's a whole lot of just culture on the field that happens, and I've been definitely guilty of it before. So, but hopefully, I want everybody to understand that conversations are happening, and those conversations are actually improving as we go on. And I think the hardest conversation that we're having right now, that I've heard about having in a couple other circles, is how far back do we go with some of these behaviors? What happens as we learn as a society? There's been a lot of really good improvement lately, but I agree it's a little late. I agree it should have happened a lot sooner. But as far as behavior goes, it's really, really visible right now, and we are having those discussions about people doing things like that. And then it's muddling through, it's getting better. But as for before the current level of society, there were those conversations before. But a lot of times the precedents would go to fighting, and that's the honest answer, is this person was good on the field. This person helped us win this war. This person did this. This person brought this many fighters. And they got the fair share of the support. And then that's how it happened. But the conversations are getting better. And that's really, really like a shout out, I think, to the improvements. It's sad that they're going slowly, but I'm just happy they're happening.
All right. Before we just move on to the next person, I just want to add something to the question to broaden it a little bit. Somebody added in there. Savava asked, do you think it's, if in a situation like that where you're either being yelled at or berated or anything like that, do you think it's better to bring that person up to, would it be better for them to call that person out or to bring it to the attention of a member of the Shiv? I personally think it'd be better to bring it to the member of the Shiv, because some people take this sport of ours a little too seriously, and you just really don't want to put yourself in that kind of shitty position. But I will move it on to Cullen and let him give his opinion on that.
One of the things is, what if the chivalry is one of the problems, which is one of the question was about if the chivalry was one of the guilty parties in that. And
anyway,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I would have to say, Valgard and Zippy touched on a lot of things that I was going to already talk about. But to answer that question, would it be better to call out that jack off themselves or ask a Shiv to take care of it? I think it's really a matter of how comfortable you feel with it. There's a lot of people out there who, do not mind telling people where to put their position. Other people are not going to be as comfortable saying, looking at someone and saying, telling them that they can go fuck off. I think, we're here if you need someone to be that, to be that asshole to tell them off. But I certainly think it's in your rights to go tell them that, they can't treat you like that.
All right, let's go. Let's see who's next in line here. Ionis.
Okay, first off, I'm sorry you had a shitty experience with members of my order, our order. I apologize on behalf of myself for being hopefully a former douchebag, and I try and apologize for being a future douchebag as well, which I'm really qualified to be. However, I take a similar stance with Sir Cullen on this. We grew up in similar areas, so I think it's a mindset more. Listen, we are human. There's one cool part about, I've read into the bullying policy and the harassment policy all in the SCA, and nowhere in it does it say, hey, you're an asshole. It is a bisexual statement. It is good for everybody. male, female, dog, cat, lion, tiger, bear, dragon. I don't care who you are. An asshole is an asshole. If you are comfortable calling somebody that or standing behind somebody while I call somebody that, you know, there's an old group of knights that I used to know from Atlanta called the Woodshed Knights. Every once in a while, I really wish they were still around because they had no problem taking somebody and telling them what's what. Unfortunately, I'm a little dated in that. But be who you are, and I'm gonna throw a little what I call it punk rock philosophy. But growing up, authenticity was a big thing. To answer the original question, being authentic, being a genuine person, doing what you say, saying what you mean, and then proving it and being that person. I guarantee you, your reputation as a person and a fighter will reach my ears before your sword ever does. Plain and simple, you know, and that's what I got to say about that. Thank you.
All right, let's see. Cassius is next in line.
So
There he is.
just a little piece about, I think this is one of several areas that we as an order need to do better on. Like, and one of the things, if we're talking about philosophy, you know, one of the main lines of our oath, do what is just and good. And I remember being struck by a conversation in the East Kingdom Peer Lounge list where we were discussing the order of changing the title of Master of Arms, to change that so that we weren't addressing people as master. A just and right thing to do. And suddenly other peers of the East were, you know, talking about us as the football team and as an order that is supposed to be the epitome of chivalry, to know that we're seen this way by others. I feel like, especially when we're doing one of the things that was fixing something that was doing harm, and still we were, you know, people who have been shell-shocked by other experiences with members of the order. I mean, part of it is, you know, the society determines its leadership by might makes right, and that triggers a lot of people in their past experience with bullies. And as people who are some of the most strong and physically capable people in the society, we need to be very clear that we are very judgmental about where we apply that force, and to conduct ourselves in a way where people feel safer for our presence and our strength. And that hasn't always been a part of who the group has been. And I'm a relatively new member. I think myself and one of the newest on this panel. But you know, I see a lot of people exploring some hard questions, and this is definitely one of the things that we have to figure out a better way of dealing with, because there's certainly a lot of stuff that I've watched in the last, I don't know, particularly in the last year, where we've been mostly in conversation where we're seeing people who have been in the group for a long time, and there's a little bit of like, well, they've been around, so, you know. And I think this is definitely one of the pieces of our order that we need to clean up hard and fast and figure out how to deal with a little more directly than have lots of conversations.
All right, thank you. I think we'll do one more on this, then we'll move on to the next one. Looks like we got MacGyver, who lovingly made his screen name Wilhelm is the best, so I get it. So I got to let him in on that.
Well, you just have to throw that out there every once in a while. Good evening, everybody. The one thing I do want to throw out there, if there is a peer that is behaving this way, and you're intimidated to go on that peer, please, there are other peers out there you can speak to. There are many members of the chivalry that would love to talk to somebody. if you don't speak up, if people don't speak up, we just don't know. After somebody has been raised, I hear stories about laurels. They did this, they did that, or members of the chivalry. They did this, they did that, because nobody spoke up ahead of time. Please, if you are worried about it, there is somebody else you can talk to, and hopefully it'll get to us, because if we don't hear about it, we just don't know. Don't assume we know everything that's going on.
All right, thank you. Ryu said he just wanted to make one quick point, so go ahead if you want to jump on that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try this in an elevator pitch, so like 60 seconds. So back to the original point. What is it that we were going to be looking for? Was there a qualifier other than the prowess part that we're obviously talking about? So yes, I want to understand who an unbelt is on a philosophical level. Do you understand what loyalty is versus duty? If the answer is yes, I move on to the next virtue. If the answer is no, I want to know why we're even talking about you. So to that point, the first thing that I'm going to look for in an unbelt is how does this individual make my order better? Because ultimately the people that are problematic within the order, my goal is to outlive them and replace them with people that I know to be better and ultimately improve the overall quality of this order. Do you understand what is good, what is right, what is just, and why those three things are different? And as to the point of whether or not you confront with someone directly, that's entirely up to you as the individual. I myself, as an unbelt, had a confrontation with a knight as an unbelt, and I took him aside candidly and I said, "Sir, you have spoken to me in a tone of voice that my own father would not address me in. Speak to me again that way at your own hazard. Draw the lines that you feel that are comfortable for you. If someone violates the line that you have drawn in the sand, make them pay for it." And you either make them pay for it by having another confrontation with them, or by telling the next person up, or the next person up, or the next person up.
All right. Let's see. Next question we have here is, if anyone would like to expound on these, I'm really only going to try to move on just in the interest of time, because we had to start a little late tonight. But if you have any questions, if you'd like to continue these discussions or have any more, looking for more information on these, feel free to post on the Ask the Chivalry list, send any of us an email. Feel free to reach out anytime. We're all extremely accessible, and we'll answer pretty much any questions you put in front of us, because we love to talk. So don't feel that you have to let a subject drop just because we're running out of time. We want to move on. So if there's any more information you need, just reach out. So the next question is from Thorin. How do you look at a squire who had to give their belt back? Is this looked down on? So does anybody want to jump on that one? All right, Zibby, go right ahead.
Not at all. This is a simple one. It's just your relationship with your knight and who your representative is between you guys. Relationships go bad. People break up. I'm not going to pick sides in the fight. If you did something toxic on the way out, or your knight did something toxic on the way out, that's something entirely different. But if you decided that wasn't the relationship for you, and you broke up, it's fine. That's literally how I look at it.
All right. I saw a couple other hands go up. Go ahead, Colin.
I mean, I re-squired a guy after he gave his belt back. That relationship didn't end well. I ended up squiring him, and he went on to become a Viscount and knight himself. I mean, there's not part of the knight and squire relationship is exactly what Zippy talked about. It's a relationship. Both sides got to meet in the middle to make things work. And if things aren't working, or if things aren't going, the way that you feel they should go, then this is a game, and you got to have fun, and you got to enjoy what you're doing. And if all the pieces don't come together to work that way, then it's not worth doing it.
All right. I saw Ionis, and then an opinion from the far north. Go ahead, Ionis.
Hey guys. All right. So I'm of two minds with this. I mean, I've never chosen a squire based on prowess, gender, anything. I have 4 squires. I have based all of them on my connection with them? Are they teachable with me? And I want, for me, my relationship with a squire in my household, in my way of doing things, is so much more than the stupid red belt, the status in the society. And it's not stupid, it's foolish to me, because that thing is interchangeable. But the relationships and the family that you build, we say chosen family, and we throw that around a lot in the SCA, you know. But for me and my household, when I ask somebody, I very plainly say, hey, it's on the table if you ever want it, because I love you enough to be in my family. I love you enough for wherever I am, you are welcome. And you are welcome to be part of and live this dream with me and help me live this dream with you. And it's a reciprocating partnership. It's fealty taken, fealty given. It's just so much more than that for me personally. So I've had a squire try and give me her belt back 4 times this year because she's been sick. And listen, anybody who follows me on Facebook knows I've had a pretty rough go at it for a couple months. You know, I'm sick as well. We can be sick together. Fuck it. You know, that's how life is sometimes. We're human. We make mistakes. We fall down. We get the fuck up. And we do what we need to do. Thank you.
All right. And let's hear from a guest speaker, Baldrick.
Hey, everybody. So the Squire thing is a
Oh, you got to introduce yourself. Come on.
Oh, okay. Hey, guys. I'm Count Baldrick from Eldemir. I spent some time. I've lived most of my life in Mid-Realm / Eldemir. I spent some time in the East. Spent some time in Ontier. I've pretty much been in the SCA for over 30 years, I should say. And I've had the distinct pleasure of spending a lot of time with a lot of these people here in this chat. So I've been very lucky. So that's me. Yes, I see you, blonde. For the Squire thing, kind of near and dear to me, I got squired probably after I had started fighting. I got squired within about a year. Eldemir is a relatively small kingdom, and I've been doing SCA for a long time, but I hadn't been fighting it for a long time. So I crossed over as an army guy, so I was fit, got into fighting because duh, and then it just went chaos from there, and I had a lot of fun. My knight went AWOL probably about, I would say probably about 4 or 5 years later. And he went completely off the charts and wasn't around at all. Eldemir was one of those kind of kingdoms where there was a lot of people paying attention to a lot of people. It's a relatively small kingdom. If you're a fighter, knights are noticing you if you're active at all. And I had enough friends that were paying attention to me and sort of watching how things go. And we're still, if he wasn't there, there was other people looking out for me. And I think the Knight Squire relationship is one of those kind of relationships that can be just a friendship. It can be 100% just the kind of thing where they're there to guide you, even if it's just from a mental standpoint, from a conversational standpoint, from a, you know, hey, you stepped on it that time, or hey, you know, if you have a problem, come talk to me. But at the same token, there can be people that are, you know, other knights who are fighting the weapon styles that you're fighting, because maybe your knight isn't. They are supporting you from a standpoint of the arts and sciences. They're helping to guide you from a point of the council is worried about this, or they're guiding you on your path that way. They don't need to be your knight. And the red belt is a testament to somebody sort of deciding to, you know, put their hand over you. But it's not necessarily, they're not the only path to that. So when I got knighted after like I was the unbelt commander at Penzic, and I got knighted like right after the unbelt tourney kind of thing. And my knight came out of the crowd. He hadn't been playing in years and came out of the crowd. And there I am sitting next to my squire brother going, oh God, I know what this means. It's one of us. And I mean, I was sort of in that moment of chaos. The whole concept being is that if he hadn't have shown up, I was still going to get put on vigil that day. Not because my knight decided I was getting knighted, but because the council and their majesties decided I was getting knighted. And the concept behind giving back your belt or giving back a squire chain for those that go that direction, I don't think is really, it's a decision you have to make personally. But if you're on the path, your knight may not be looking out for you, but there are others that are going to. And the goal is at that point is, if your knight's not active, talk to your knight, get fostered by somebody closer to you that can look out for you, make sure that you're getting that kind of push and that kind of contribution. It doesn't have to be from the guy that gave you the belt.
Cool, thank you. Trent wanted to expand on that question a little bit, so if you want to jump in there.
I think Baldric took a bit of it, but I had conversations with Thorin and a couple of other people, and there is the concern, not just breaking a relationship with the knight, it's more so losing an advocate. As someone who went, I don't know, I think 7 years without one because mine had a heart attack and stopped playing, I kind of understand that. At this point, I'm not worried for myself because if it happens, it happens. Basically, I talk enough crap that most of you guys are targeting me anyway. But there are people that, you know, they may jump on a night, like jump on a chance to have a particular night just so that they have someone talking about them. Baldric pretty much touched on it, that you guys are all looking at us, but that is still a concern for some. Like, you know, how to get out there and actually, without someone to talk to who knows your story, a backer, so to speak.
All right. Let's see. Let's have Zippy finish this up, and then we'll move on to another one. And I just want to point out real quick, there have been unbelted knights in the kingdom. Was there? I know Gabriel was the last one. Was there another one after Gabriel? Anyone remember?
No.
No?
You mean people made knights who hadn't been squires?
Correct. Yeah, who weren't squires. I think Gabriel was the last
Because
one.
an unbelted knight's kind of a contradiction in terms.
Not really. I disagree.
Gabriel was the last one I remember.
Yeah, so it has happened.
And
So,
Gabriel was in direct fealty to Darius at the time. He was his champion.
so don't think you have to be a squire. You have to be a man at arms. Just be the best person you can be and kick everyone else's ass, and you'll be good. So,
Ivan Eriksson wasn't a squire.
who?
Yeah, Ivan Ulrichsen was not.
That's right.
He was never a
Right.
squire.
All right.
They just said someone posted in the chat, Sir Olaf, who recently just got knighted.
Oh, okay. All right.
Wolstania and Shad.
I don't remember what I did last week. You expect me to remember this stuff?
Yeah, Wolfstan wasn't a squire, was he?
That's true. Yeah, no, Wolfstan wasn't.
It's
All right,
finding your own. Well,
we'll let Zippy answer this question, then we'll move on to the next one. Go ahead.
you just need to find a relationship. If you're not a squire, then the knights, well, I mean, they are idiots, but I mean, they're not complete idiots. They are aware that you don't have a knight, and they know that you don't have an advocate. If you're getting there, people notice, and it's fine. You don't really need advocate. We know. And then on the other hand, dude, don't be in a hurry. This is a wonderful time. There's a lot of the older knights that will tell you to enjoy the time before you become a peer. Like, if you're in a hurry to like I need to know why I'm bond advocated for. I need to make sure they're talking about me. Why aren't they talking about me? It's, chill out, man. Step back, enjoy the time. And a lot of the especially some of the knights that had a short path, a lot of the knights that had a short path will turn around and go, you know, I wish I enjoyed that time a little bit more when I was there.
All right, so let's move on to the next one. This one's a good thinker. So this was sent in by Saruka, and she asks, "Is it ever appropriate to resign a peerage, and if so, when? Why or why not?" Anyone want to jump on that one? All right, then I will. So I believe that there's always a reason to resign a peerage. I'll speak from the side of a knight, obviously. If I lost all confidence in the SCA, if I felt that the SCA is no longer a place I wanted to be, no longer a place I thought I could do any good, or no longer a place that held anything for me. And I thought that I couldn't do anything to make it better. I would probably feel the need. I would probably feel like I have failed as my service as a knight, and feel the need to turn in my belt because there's nothing I can do to make the kingdom any better. Other than that, many people have done it over the years for a variety of reasons. So whatever reason you do, obviously there's always a reason. How can I phrase this? Yes, I believe there's always a reason to do it. It's a very personal reason. People will do it for whatever they want to. For me personally, again, it would feel that if I no longer felt I had a place in the SCA and I couldn't do anything to make it any better, I would probably feel like I had failed as a knight, and I would probably turn in my regalia and ride off into the sunset on my poor old horse. So, let's see. Zippy!
Sorry to keep talking. I have an example a little bit different than some of the other resignations. A really good friend of mine, who's the owner of Windrose Armory. A lot of you guys have seen him before. Master Johannes is no longer a knight. He's resigned it. It's a public thing. I disagree with it. I don't like it. I loved him. He's a wonderful inspiration as a knight. That's his personal path. It's his personal choice. And he can make that choice. And I can disagree and think that he will guide many squires on from here until the end of earth because he is such a good and wonderful knight. But he doesn't think so. And it's his choice. So, I mean, I have no choice in that path. If you decide to resign the peerage, it's on you and your relationship with the peerage. If I were to resign my peerage for any reason, I would resign it knowing that I would never expect to get it again. If anybody resigns it and says, well, I'm going to resign this because I've for these weird reasons, but then I'll get it back later because of so-and-so. If you resign your peerage, you should expect it to be forever and do it for your own personal reasons and think about it. Take your time.
All right. Ionis.
Okay, so I have a lot of history with this in my household, and a lot of other households do. Some people want to also change the face of their chivalry. My knight who had given up his belt and then taken a baldric, and vice versa. I believe Lucan did the same thing, except he gave up a baldric and took a belt, just the other way around.
Yeah, it was an even trade.
Yeah. In the case of Darius, he had thrown his belt down at one point and walked away from it, expecting never to get it again. And it was handed back to him at a later date. I don't exactly know by whom, or I'm just not going to mention it right now because family bullshit. But I think if you give up the peerage, like what Willie said, you're not getting it back easily, or you should expect never to be able to come back to that level of performance, barring any, no offense, but sick shit or R&D-able offenses, that strip you of these things. I always found it funny that in the SCA, you get to keep your honorary title, even if you get everything else stripped from you. And it was always an odd rule that one day I'm going to write a letter to the bot about when I'm a bit clearer of thought. But you can do terrible things to people and still be a duke, but not a knight. Shit doesn't make any sense to me. But that's what I got for that.
All right. And actually, I just want to add one thing onto that. I have seen over the years, people have turned it in almost for a shtick, which I always kind of bugged me. Somebody says, oh, I offended the king, so I'm turning in my belt to get a quest to get it back. And that always kind of bugged me because I don't look at it as something to just be used for shtick. So, like Iona said, if I'm giving this thing back, I'm never expecting to get it back. So that's it. We got our Valdar.
Yeah, one or two things. I would say that I'm a little bit at odds with what Wilhelm just said, which is that if someone has committed an offense and they feel they need to redeem themselves somehow, and they give their chain and their belt to the crown to hold for them until the crown thinks that they are worthy. I don't quite look on that as shtick. I'm willing to believe that that's a sincere form of penance, right? I'm a big one for medieval solutions to medieval problems, and a medieval solution to a problem of causing a slight offense is to do a penance, right? And I actually really support that a lot. On the other hand, I recall a duke who was being a real jerk after a drunken night, and the next day he offered to ride the barrier at a tournament, and he did, and everybody avoided hitting him. And I had two things to that. One, that was a piece of shtick, and I think it diminished his apology. And two, I wished I had been there, because I was going to just paste him right in the face. I wish he rode the barrier for 3 fights and I was the 4th, and I was going to paste him right in the face, because I think if you're going to ride the barrier as a penance, then you really need to get hit. That's the first point.
Can I just add some before you change? I just want to add one thing on there.
Yeah.
I see a separation, because I've done this, between the chain of fealty and your belt, because your chain, you're swearing fealty to the crown, the king, the queen, etc., whomever's on the throne. So I have given that up. If I've given offense, I said, when you're ready, you give this back to me, because I see that as I did something to screw up my fealty. But that belt is just something, is like one level above for me. That's the distinction I'm making between the two, if that makes sense.
Interesting. Okay. As far as resigning peerages go, my sometimes Squire Viscountess Krista resigned her pelican a little while ago, and she did it because she had decided that the order had drifted so far away from where she was that she didn't want to be associated with them anymore. She made it and that's her choice, and I think it's a reasonable choice, and I was very disheartened when it happened. There is a very old precedent. One of the very first knights of the society was Sir Bela of Eastmarch, mundanely known as Pole Anderson, and he only fought for a couple of years. And when he decided to retire from the field, he resigned his peerage and returned his belt to the crown, because he believed that he couldn't take the field anymore, that he should not be a knight. I disagree with that position, but it is an honorable one that I won't dispute. That's all.
All right, no other hands up. Any last call? Anyone want to make any other comments on this one? All right, let's see. So we'll move on. Question from Britta. And if I butcher anyone's names, just throw something at me the next time you see me. That's cool. How do you, as an order, support women fighters? So does anyone want to? Now, I do want to. It was written in chat. Are you still here, Britta? Are you still here?
Yes.
Would you now? I just want to expound on that a little bit. When you say handle women fighters, do you mean on the field, off the field, in armor, afterwards, or do you just mean in a like as a squire? In what way are you referring to, or do you just mean as an overall?
How do you help women who are interested in pursuing fighting?
Oh, okay.
To achieve, wherever they want to go, knighthood or becoming master or mistress of arms or whatever you're calling it now. How because, and I know it's not universally true, but it has been true sometimes, and also with my discipline, which is rapier, that sometimes women don't get the same support that men do.
Nope, that's a very fair question. It's a comment we've heard a lot over the last probably a lot more over the last 5 years, because there's been a big initiative in, I mean, I'm only speaking for the East Kingdom, obviously. There's been a big initiative in the chivalric order to try to be more supportive to everybody, to female fighters. And a lot of us have tried, because there is a distinct difference in physiology when it comes to, like, I know how I throw a shot. That may not translate to a female fighter, or even a smaller fighter or a bigger fighter. So we have a tendency, I know I have a tendency to generalize a lot. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I don't see, personally, I don't see any difference, male, female, I don't care. I'll help train anybody, answer questions, bring them to practice, support them, answer advice or questions. I'm trying to think how to focus in on that. I'll let someone else blather on for a moment. Let's see who's up there first. Cassius, go right ahead.
I have some pretty strong feelings about this, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna probably embarrass my squire who's here and maybe piss her off, but my perspective on supporting women fighters in the SCA, and particularly what we in the East Kingdom need to do, is shifted a lot in the last 6 months. And if we look at ourselves as an order, we are mostly white, middle-aged men, or getting close to or getting out of that. And one of the things that I've learned is that we need to ask what people need. And watching Tim Brian bring in a whole host of brand new women fighters and teach them how she wished she had been trained 12 years ago and brought into the society at that time, instead of me thinking about what I think they need or how I can help them and what I think their challenges are, to just shut up, ask how we can be of service, and then do what's asked of us. That's my perspective. So I'm trying to practice that as much as possible.
All right, let's go to Ryu.
Yeah. So I have a certain number of advantages that came with me starting in the society. I'm 6'5", 275 pounds, but I was knighted to a man who's 5'5" on a full moon. So his entire fighting style didn't work for me. I couldn't do anything that he did. My wife is also a heavy list fighter. When she started fighting, we had brought in a number of other women that were fighters. And, you know, notably the first things that we noticed was they don't throw the way that we do. And I think it's really, really important to manage those distinctions, right? You can't train every single person the same. You have to be willing to acknowledge that the way that you do things is not the correct way to do them, or not the correct way for them, as Cassius was saying. In terms of how we talk about encouraging them, I think it's really, really important to acknowledge a lot of the courses of human history for things that we maybe have not remembered as much. Things like the fact that, like, there was a warrior caste of women in Japan in the form of, like, the Onabu geisha, that during the Gupta period of India, there was also a warrior caste of women. There was the Scythian cavalry, another warrior group of women. Throughout history, there have been a number of female heroes that have led their people in wars. The Greeks referred to them from the Hellenistic age, the virago. I think it's really important that we acknowledge the power and presence of women in history, to set those examples as teachers and as a society that is supposed to emulate and represent all the best parts of history, the most romantic ones that inspire all of us to even do the thing that we do. So in addition to the training and learning how, you know, we need to throw our shots differently and how to fit armor properly on women, because women are not the same copy paste square box that most of us men are. We also should learn the overall relevance of women throughout the course of human history, and then teach that going forward, so that women also have those idols to hold.
All right. Let's see, Cullen.
Cash has hit it right on the head. Is ask and particularly listen to what they have to say. You know, asking questions is good, but we really need to listen, and we need to ourselves as an order. We need to you know, learn what the best things are, you know, to help.
Good. All right. Let's see, Valgar.
So I got a lot to say about this, and it would take up a whole bunch of time. And I've written some of it in a book I published a bunch of time a few years ago on the SCA, and you can find some of it there. But I was talking about this issue with my lady night before last, because she had been a heavy fighter and then decided it wasn't for her and dropped out of heavy fighting, and she had a number of issues that were, I don't know if they were, she didn't think they were specific to her, and I'm not sure if they were or not, that had to do with the inability of our system in a myriad of ways to support women, right? And individually we attempt to do it, but the system does not in some ways. And I think that that in one, it's because although we do fight against it from time to time, chivalry is gendered. You know, the romantic image of the knight in shining armor is always a man, and when it's a woman, it's an aberration, because there are knights who they are older, but there are older knights who believe that their ideal of chivalry prevents them from fighting a woman, right? Because of because of how they viewed their oath, and that set up roadblocks, right, to women. We all know that exists. And then there's an issue of, in my book, I discussed two different lady knights, one of whom was a product of 70s feminism, one of whom was a product of 90s feminism. And the product of 70s feminism wanted to be treated exactly as the men were treated, and the product of 90s feminism thought that training a woman had to be different. I side with the latter, and what I've discovered is that that I'm pretty good at training people, but I'm not particularly good at training women fighters. One time I thought I was, but in fact I'm really not. And that's why I completely agree with Cassius that that the main thing is, and I've always believed that each individual fighter has to be trained to their individual strengths. But I think that we as an order, and certainly myself, need to pay more attention to what those strengths are. That's about it.
All right, thank you. Let's go to Ionis.
All right. All right. I think I got it right. Sorry, this is my first time using my lady's computer. It's why my name is all of a sudden Rohonig von Sommerfeld. So I apologize if I screw it up. I have no idea how to work this one. So I have a female squire. We have trained together a bunch. I also believe that in my heart, this is not a fucking boys club. And it's been treated that way in my experience for a long time. You know, this is not a bunch of old fellows getting together and drinking, and there's always the, you know, she's good enough for a girl. She's good enough for a girl fighter, you know, and I've been guilty of it when I started in the SCA, not so much in the years now, but, you know, being a father, raising daughters, having a female squire has changed my perspective by leaps and bounds. I may not be able to train them. They may work with my style. They may not. You know, I always tell people that if you can dance, I can teach you how to fight. And that's my personal experience, because all my footwork's based on like salsa and bachata and cumbia steps. It's terrible. And I think that can translate to a lot of people, but I don't know. However, you know, people are people, and I've agreed with most everything of what people have said. Unfortunately, except for Valgard, I take exception with a couple of things, because we're not on the same wavelength there, but you come from a very different generation of SCA. Like I said, I picked up my first sword 11 years ago this week, you know, and I just have a very different experience with female fighters in the SCA. My second practice ever was Nutley, and Seichel beat the ever-living piss out of me. So one of my first experiences was respecting the shit out of a 5'6" woman, 120 pounds, soaking wet with pockets full of quarters, fucking me up. All right? And here I am thinking I'm, you know, the shit. You remember, I used to just run people down. She'd sidestep me, boom, done, over.
If I can say something that I want to make clear here, one of the very first person.
Okay, cool.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I apologize. No, I apologize. The very first person who trained me was a female fighter, and one of my primary trainers was a female knight. And so I'm not sure. I'm not sure you understood what I was trying to say. If what you thought I said was that I was not feeling the female fighters were somehow equal to what we do, right? So
no, I didn't take it that way at all.
Okay, good.
It's the matter of the historical references between 70s and 90s feminism versus being here today, where like, does anybody here have a transgender squire? Because I wouldn't know what to do, honestly. I'd have to put it to a group. Does anybody have anything to do with that kind of stuff? And these are
I had a transgender squire brother.
Okay, but you're not a knight of a transgender.
No, I'm not.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have that experience either.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wouldn't know what to do. However, we all grow and learn together, and that's what I'm getting at. You know, this is no longer, even 10 years ago when I joined, what I believed was the boys club, you know, was the old guard. That shit is long gone. And I know that's the generation you grew up in, and you have adapted and changed. And I love you. You're Uncle Val, dude. You know that. You know.
I'm acknowledging that existed. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it was just the
and that it needed to be kicked to the curb.
My name just changed to Wilhelm is Dreamy. Thank you. All right. That's
just trying to help out, brother.
I really appreciate it. Like, just so much that can't hear it. Let me turn it up for you. All right, sorry.
You can let your feelings out, man. It's a new world.
I got a lot of feelings. Like I said, I've been going through some shit. I could take up this whole time with some fucking feelings, right? You know, so, but thank you. That's all I got. I wasn't taking exception with you. It was the historical part of it that triggered the thought process of what it was like when I got here. And it was 15 Dukes talking about, yeah, she's good enough for a girl, versus today where we're going, how do we teach this lady? How do we respect this person to get her to where she needs to be, or them, or they, or whatever you want to be called? I'll fuck it up, but I'll try, you know? And that's the truth from me, from where I'm learning and living today.
All right. Let's see. Crow's got his hand up. What you got, buddy?
So, for the most part, people have pretty much said everything that I was going to say, but there are two very small points I wanted to add. The first is we do have to make sure that we don't treat women as a all-encompassing group, because just like male fighters deal with different philosophies and different ways of learning, so do females. So we have to be careful we don't fall into that trap. So that's just one thing. The second thing is, from a logistical standpoint, it's kind of on the field, but it's also off the field too, is we can support them by doing small things to help make sure that they feel comfortable and they feel welcomed. And that could be everything from making sure that they have a changing area where they feel that, where they may not be quite so self-conscious, because some women don't like armoring up in front of guys. So maybe having a space for them where they can do that. I've had women suggest that to me, that would help them out greatly. Or other small, small as far as effort goes, but big to them, logistical things that that could just help them feel a little bit more comfortable and make them understand that we're listening to their needs. That's all.
All right. What was that? Thom's iPad. Oh, Timbrian. Okay.
Sorry, yeah, I don't know how to work this
No
computer.
worries.
But Britta, to your point, very much just recently with being blessed by more women fighters around me, I'm understanding some of what I've been able to learn is relevant. And as obviously much smaller person than all the household I fought with for the 12, 13 years prior, I just kind of thought like, okay, what I had to figure out, I just keep it to my heart, and I'm glad I figured it out somehow. But now I'm like, oh, this design of my hip belt, which holds up my armor, will work for all of you. There's like these little things. So I started to kind of amass a bunch of questions, and I'm actually, Britt, if I can get your information maybe later, I've made a survey actually in cooperation with the SCA's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And it really is just to kind of get a good reading on where the female identified fighting experience is at this point. It has lots of questions regarding like what your needs are, what your issues are, what your challenges are, what success is to you, what is helpful to you, and then what ideas of events and support systems could help you in reality as options at the end. Because I feel like as a force, there's not much I can expect. My knight, who is the greatest knight I could have ever chosen, Cassius, like he doesn't, I have to ask for specific things. And especially if someone is just starting, they may not know what to ask. So I feel like it's our responsibility to educate and organize and advocate for ourselves. And so I feel like that's coming. And from this survey, we hope to amass like, okay, what are the real supportive systems that will turn the dial to get you on the field safe, comfortable, and knowing how to throw a kill shot? Like those are the three things, right? So I feel like it's definitely in the works, and it's an exciting time because as you see, like all the male identified folks are 100% at our service, and it's a really powerful, exciting place to be. And I think we're in the best time of SCA ever, frankly.
Cool. Thank you. All right. Looks like we're good on that. So let's see. We got a couple more here. It says, this is from Ellie. It says, what, if any, historical context or texts informed your approach to chivalry? I got nothing. Mine was all pretty much just my environment and what was pounded into me when I was training, I'm afraid. So, anyone want to jump on that one? Ryu, go ahead.
Yeah. So I've always been a student of Japanese martial arts. During the Sengoku Daimyo period, which is starting in the 15th century and ends pretty abruptly at the beginning of the 17th century in 1603. There was a required reading for the samurai that was expected for you to have read by the time you were like 15 before you could be contracted to be a samurai. There were 5 books, which I read all of which during my time as a squire, which was the Buddha Shinshu, which is a swordsman's primer, the Unfettered Mind, the Analects, the Doctrine of Mean, and the Mencius. Those 5 books were all required reading from the samurai. In fact, I have a tattoo of a kanji on my left hip from the Buddha Shinshu. It's the 2nd chapter, the first page. It says, "The true warrior shall always be with a sword upon his hip." So I took the kanji for sword from that book and got it tattooed on me to remind me to always stay on that path.
Cool. Let's see what we got here. Val's got his hand up.
So my night required me to read Eaters of the Dead, believe it or not. And I require my squires to read The Courtier by Castiglione. I'm a real slacker because of the books that really informed the SCA at the beginning, right? I read Lord of the Rings, but I hadn't actually read Sir Nigel till recently. Not that that's a historical text, mind you. But I know that it's where SCA knighthood comes from, is from Sir Nigel. And I would recommend it to people now. But the book that really informs the historical text that really informed my SCA career, one was The Courtier by Castiglione, and the other was The Prince by Machiavelli.
We actually had a required reading too, but I'll be damned if I can remember what the name of it was. Joachim, you don't remember, do you? What that book? Yeah, I can't remember. Zippy.
My knight was a quirky dude, Service Tom from Montier. He showed up with a syllabus when I was squire. There was a sword form kata, because he was big into making everything a soft style instead of a hard style, and a reading list. The reading list started out with the cartoon history of the world, because he's like, we're knights, you should have some knowledge of history. And then he was big Asian focused, so he had a whole lot of stuff focused on the Book of Five Rings, Sun Tzu's of the Art of War. All of those are really excellent choices. But really, you'll find people that are inspired by being a knight or inspired by chivalry, and they don't have to be knights. You need to look at the books that they're reading. The Greatest Knight about William Marshall. I love William Marshall. He's one of the greatest knights in history. And then you in another book by Christian Cameron, The Ill-Made Knight is an awesome one. It gets pretty graphic, but it talks about the books he read in period, which are super cool, and talks about reading Thomas Aquinas and Raymond Lull and things like that. These are real period texts, and they were inspired back in the day in different places and different time periods. The books that Ryu were talking about are totally accurate. Like, they would sit around and talk about what it meant to be a samurai, what it meant to be these inspirations. As far as reading texts, find people that are really into that time period or something that you're super excited about, and find out what books are really dedicated to that time. And you will have too many books to read.
All right. Cullen, hit us with it.
I think for me, I mean, I read so much. There's so much that influenced me, but particularly Lucan got me into Maurice's Strategicon by Emperor Maurice and Sowing the Dragon's Teeth on Byzantine warfare, and both of those had so much, influence on me, later, especially when melee and me later, working towards being a Eastern warlord. Like, they definitely had a huge impact on me and on my path.
All right. Did Pat just leave? Drake? Oh, I was going to ask him what rock he read when he was little. Missed it. I think I saw Torvald slinking around somewhere. You got anything to add there, buddy? You still here?
Yep, I'm still here.
There
Yeah,
he
I
is.
mentioned a couple of books in the comments. Josh Waitzkin, who was a chess prodigy and later a champion in full contact martial arts competition, wrote a book called The Art of Learning that is partly a discussion of how people learn, and in particular, how people develop the ability to apply complex skill sets under pressure, and partly a memoir of his experiences competing both in chess and then later in martial arts that reinforces what he has to say about learning. Another book is that I think is worth reading for any combat athlete is The Fighter's Mind by Sam Sheridan. Sheridan has trained and competed in MMA and Muay Thai and trained in several other combat sports. And for The Fighter's Mind, he went around interviewing high-level fighters and coaches in a bunch of different combat sports, talking to them about the mental aspects of both training and competition, both for themselves and for those who were coaches, for how they coached based on their experience. And there is a lot of good practical information in there that's worth thinking about for anybody that's training in any combat sport, especially if you're going to compete at any level. So I would, neither of those obviously has direct relevance to the Middle Ages, but as far as learning to be a skilled fighter, I would suggest both of those.
All right. Anyone else have anything to add to the reading list or comments about it? All right. I am actually out of questions, so I'll open it up. Does anyone else have anything they would like to ask? Any burning questions you've been dying to know? No? All right. Well, I'll ask the panel then, unless you guys have any closing comments or statements you'd like to make. Ionis, go right ahead.
Yeah, it works. All right. So since we've been discussing philosophy and stuff, and I'm not going to take up too much time, but I keep hearkening back to what I'm going through in my life now and trying to equate it towards what I want to be in the SCA. And recovery from something is an interesting process, and I've never met a person who isn't recovering from something. And the way it works in my brain is does anybody else here like consider fighting a spiritual thing? Like hardcore? Like, I mean, when I leave practice, Baldrick, shut your video off. Nobody wants to see that. Yeah. And so like, I don't know about you guys, but when I go to practice and I fight and I leave everything on that floor or on that field, I drive home. I don't need my cigarettes. I don't need my coffee. I don't even got to turn on the radio. It's me and the goddess just sitting there, driving home, talking, praying, meditating, whatever you can do to let something better into your life. And that's fighting can put me into that mindset to give me, a guy who never shuts up, a chance to listen. It breaks me enough to learn how to be a better man, a better knight, a better father, a better everything, and just don't take it for granted that you have today and you have yesterday, because 20 minutes is not guaranteed. Life's not guaranteed. 3 weeks ago, I sat at this kitchen table trying to find a way to leave this place and not be here with you guys anymore. I went from being 16 years clean and sober to having 21 fucking days. It's some shit. And if you can equate that, and if you can get up, you can stand up and believe in something and be part of something. And this is a hella group to belong to. I'm proud and privileged to have slapped like 3 or 4 guys in this fucking chat right now. And each and every fucking one of them, it is an honor to serve next to them, to be with them, and to have gotten to punch them in the face. And in Ryu's case, slap him in the back of the head because he leaned forward, jackass. But, you know, I love you, and, you know, just stop taking shit for granted, because nothing's guaranteed. And that's just where I'm at in life right now. But it's all applicable, you know, for everybody and everything. So you all have a good night. I'm going to listen to everybody else.
I'm going to add one more book to the list we were talking about. One of my personal favorites is by Chozan Niwa. It's The Demon's Sermon on Martial Arts. It's an interesting piece that's like a combo of story and philosophy. And so we're talking about philosophies, and I think one of the most important things that we do when we're on this path is to select what virtues we want to fill our cup with. And if you're not familiar with this expression, we talk about it sometimes where we say that prowess is the qualifier, prowess is the cup, right? And you should fill that cup with virtues until they overflow. And everyone's fighting style is going to be a little bit different, right? Some people want the cup to have a stem, and some want it to have a handle, and some want it to have like some place where it could have like, you know, some degree of detail. But the important thing about the cup is that it does not leak. That's where prowess is important. But the reason why it's important is the virtues that you are putting in it, right? Because we value prowess because it is your ability to enforce virtue. It was said to me by Duke Ice Falcon at my vigil. He said to me, the difference between a knight and a nice guy was prowess. So what I extrapolated from that was that the value of prowess was that you were capable of ensuring that virtues were held, that you would be the one that towed that line. So when you're on this road, pick the virtue that you want to exemplify, and do it to the excess of all others. You know, prowess is going to come, but pick the virtue that you want, exemplified to the point that when people think of that virtue, they think of you. And from there, every other virtue is going to follow.
You know, I just wanted to tag along on Ryu's statement there. Earlier we were asked, or the question came up, about whether we can take someone, if we're considering a candidate for the order, do we take into consideration how they are outside the SCA like they are inside? And we all had our opinions on it, and we all felt strongly about it. And that actually got me thinking this whole time, is that one of the things that I take from this order and from the things I learned is, like Ryu said, yeah, this is a hobby, this and that, but I also try to take everything I exemplify in the SCA and bring it to the outside world. Anyone who knows me outside the SCA knows I'm exactly the damn same, except I get to carry a stick and beat people in the SCA. I always try to follow the same philosophies, follow the same principles, act the same, help people, stand up to when you see something wrong. And you have to be able to, you can't just come to an event on the weekend and pretend to be a knight. It's something that is just in you. You have to have these beliefs. You have to be that way as a person. And if it's one thing the last couple of years has taught us, is that a lot of people have faked it for many, many years at an event on a weekend. And that is something that I will look at someone, how they are how they are outside of events, and that's how they are going to be inside events. And I will absolutely take that into consideration, because that's the standard I hold for myself. So I don't know how I got on that tangent there, but I'm going to end on it, and let's go to Cassius.
So when I introduced myself, one of the things I said was important to me about being a knight and being a member of the society is that it gives me a chance to practice certain skills that make me function better in the world. And if I think about some of the things that this martial practice has helped enforce, while informed by prior ones, you know, the things that I know that when I'm on the field, and if I'm fighting out of anger or ego or desire to win rather than just being present, I'm already at disadvantage. And the lessons of melee, like, you can't learn them in any other martial art. Like to be able to maintain awareness of so much of what's going on around you, but then still hyper focus on what's right in front of you makes me function better in my day to day and handle like tough, challenging situations with a level of grace. Cause like, you know, when I'm having conflict with a coworker, and then I think about how little that gets me unnerved compared to like when there are, you know, 50 monsters tearing down the field at you. Just I value so much what I've learned and gotten from the society, and so that's one of the most important, like for me, one of the most important things about how the philosophies I've learned about being an effective fighter on the field has really helped me function better in my life. And yeah, that's just one important thing that I wanted to just kind of like circle back to the start, because it's one of the most important things that I've gotten from the SD, and I'm eternally grateful for this society. Helped me practice being a better person and to be more calm and in command of myself when I walk around my daily life. So I thank everyone who's helped me become a better human being, including many people who are here tonight.
All right, and I think we're going to go out on Valgar. He's got the last one up.
Fight, dance, play chess, hold an office, do what's right, and don't be a dick. That's it.
Don't be a dick.
Which is why it pisses us off so much when we see people being a dick.
That's
But if you are a dick, be the biggest swinging dick you can.
Nice. All right, everyone. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you for the panels who joined us and took the time out of their daily lives to explain how they feel about the order and what the order means to them. I will post all this up on YouTube after I clean it up a little bit, and I will post the links out to the world. If anyone has any questions or want to continue on any of these topics, feel free to reach out. There's Facebook groups for the East Kingdom Chiv. You can ask any questions you want. People get back to you. Never, ever be afraid to reach out to us with any questions. Anything, even privately. Hell, anyone knows they can reach out to me. Something bugging you, you want to know something, you want to know how to throw a shot, you want to know how to address someone who's pissing you off, anything, reach out. We're all here to help you, everyone, make this kingdom and our hobby a better place to be so that everyone wants to be here. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Have a good night. All right, everybody. Good night.
Night.
Cheers.